Napoleon famously tried to take over Europe not just once, but twice. After years of fighting, he was finally defeated and exiled in 1814 to the island of Elba off of Italy. Then in 1815, he came back, fought war again for another 100 days or so, then he was defeated again, and this time exiled all the way to the island of St. Helena in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Once Napoleon was defeated, the European powers set up the Congress of Vienna in an attempt to redraw Europe's borders and hopefully establish long-lasting peace. However, because Napoleon was defeated twice, there were two peace attempts. There was both an 1814 and 1815 Treaty of Paris. Obviously, Napoleon coming back in 1815 made the original null and void, so they had to draft another treaty. But were there any major differences? Actually, yes, there were some differences, as the original 1814 treaty was a bit more generous to France. This video is going to compare the peace treaties of 1814 and 1815 in terms of how they plan to redraw the map of France and rebalance the power in Europe. So the first thing to note is that the Paris Treaty of 1815 is more definitive than the one in 1814. While the peace treaty does establish France's new borders, it's very vague about how to handle Germany and Italy, the areas most affected by Napoleon's campaigns. For example, Article 7, Section 7 of the 1814 treaty says, "The states of Germany shall be independent and united by a federative bond." That wording is vague because Napoleon basically got rid of the Holy Roman Empire. There were debates on whether to bring it back or to find a replacement entity. As it so happens, after 1815, the German Confederation was established for that purpose, and it's likely that still would have been the case if the 1814 treaty stuck around. Otherwise, it makes no mention on whether they would go back to pre-Napoleonic borders for Germany, or end up in a similar situation to what happened after 1815. At the very least, France itself would be different in the 1814 treaty compared to the 1815 treaty. For the Treaty of 1814, the European powers were mainly concerned with restoring the order of monarchical rule across Europe, so France returning to the Bourbon monarchy meant that, for the most part, mission accomplished. There wasn't really as much of an interest in outright punishing France territorially. In one of my previous videos, I discussed how after Napoleon's second defeat, European troops from various countries occupied France for a few years, kind of similar to how the Allies occupied Germany after World War II. In the case of the 1814 treaty, this did not call for any such occupation. In fact, compared to the 1815 treaty, France actually kept more land and wasn't completely restored to its pre-revolutionary borders. To show a comparison, here is France in 1789 at the start of the French Revolution. Then these territories in lighter blue were taken over in between 1789 and 1799, right before Napoleon became first consul of France. Then these territories in the steely blue color represent lands France annexed while Napoleon was in charge, whether as consul or emperor. Based on the stipulations of the 1814 treaty, France kept a few more lands and would have looked like this. The territories in red being pre-revolutionary lands that they lost, and cyan being post-1789 lands they would have kept. Overall, France had more concessions than losses. There was still an interest in keeping the original balance of power before the revolution, so these concessions were seen as harmless tokens of goodwill to the returning Bourbons. Previously isolated territories, most of them being frontier fortress cities, were now connected to France proper. Compare this to the results of the 1815 treaty, where France was not given as many concessions and lost more pre-Napoleonic territory. Because Napoleon was able to resume France's war abilities so quickly, the second peace process not only made the rest of Europe less willing to give France concessions, but also slightly changed their idea of the balance of power. It wouldn't be enough to restore the original order anymore. The scales needed to be tipped a little. They believed now that there needed to be more power given to the other great powers of Europe so that they could easily keep France in check in case something happens yet again. And they even took a few more frontier fortress cities from France. This is why Prussia and the Netherlands in particular gained huge swaths of territory in the Rhineland and Belgian areas in 1815. In terms of Europe outside of France, there are only a few stipulations in the 1814 treaty. Britain keeps Malta, Switzerland keeps their independence, there will be some sort of German confederation type thing, and Russia will keep the Duchy of Warsaw while settling other claims with Prussia and Austria later on. All of these things happened with the 1815 treaty anyway. The only notable difference is, of course, Napoleon was given rule over the island of Elba as his personal domain, which he would lose in 1815 before being exiled to St. Helena. So sadly, while it's interesting to imagine a slightly alternate timeline where Napoleon stays on Elba and France is slightly larger and peace is permanent in 1814, there are a lot of vague areas where we don't necessarily know how it would have ended up looking. For all I know, everywhere else could have been the same as 1815 minus slightly bigger France and Elba. Maybe later on Napoleon III takes power in France and makes Elba a department or something? I don't know. So last year, I tried a fun experiment about another major peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles. I had you guys vote your own outcome of the different aspects of the Treaty of Versailles and the other peace treaties of World War I that redrew Europe and the Middle East. A lot of you were interested in trying it again for other wars, so I thought this time you could all vote on a new Congress of Vienna, a new Treaty of Paris. We'll presume it's for 1815, but you'll get to vote on how much you want to weaken France or strengthen the other great powers of Europe. Perhaps maybe even some of the little guys like Bavaria or Sardinia could get a boost. Maybe you'll psychotically break France into 300 states like Germany. It's all up to you. The link to the voting is in the description, and you'll be able to vote all the way through the end of February. I'll release the results in March. Have fun, and I'm Emperor Tigerstar, and I'll see you guys next time.